My parents didn't ask me to share my inheritance. They told me I wasn't supposed to have it in the first place. Not in a loud argument. Not in anger. But calmly, like it was something obvious. Like it was a mistake that needed to be corrected. We were sitting in the living room when they said it. The kind of setting where conversations are supposed to be normal, predictable, safe. But there was nothing normal about the way they looked at me. My father spoke first. He didn't hesitate. He said my sister needed the money more, that her situation mattered more, that fairness wasn't always equal. And the way he said it made it clear this wasn't a discussion. It was a conclusion he had already reached. My mother agreed immediately, adding words like responsibility and family, framing it like a moral decision instead of a personal one. And my sister didn't interrupt, didn't disagree, didn't even pretend to feel uncomfortable. She just sat there, quiet, waiting, like she had already accepted what was about to happen. And in that moment, something became clear in a way it never had before. This wasn't about the inheritance. It wasn't about money. It was about control. About deciding what I was allowed to keep and what I was expected to give up. Because if you've ever had people in your life decide your value for you, you already know how those conversations end. This didn't start with the inheritance. It started long before that, in ways that were small enough to ignore at the time, but consistent enough to shape everything that came after. Growing up, my sister was always treated like she mattered more. Not in a way anyone would openly admit, but in the details that added up over time. She got the bigger celebrations, the better gifts, the attention that made everything she did feel important. I learned to exist around that. To be the one who didn't need much, who didn't complain, who didn't create problems. When she wanted something, they found a way to give it to her immediately. When I wanted something, I was expected to wait, to earn it, or to understand why it wasn't possible. And over time, that difference stopped feeling temporary. It became the system. She didn't have to prove anything. I had to prove everything. And even then, it didn't change how they saw me. I did well in school, built something stable for myself, created a life that didn't depend on anyone else. But none of that translated into respect, because in their eyes, I wasn't successful. I was reliable. The one who could handle things, who could fix problems, who could step in when she couldn't. And I did. Over and over again. Not because they deserved it, but because I believed that was what family meant. You show up. You help. You don't keep score. But the more I gave, the less it felt like a choice. It became expected. Invisible. Like it was simply my role to provide whatever was needed without question. And somewhere along the way, they stopped seeing me as someone with boundaries at all. When my grandfather passed, everything should have been simple. He had a will, and it was clear. Everything was divided equally between his grandchildren. No hidden meaning. No complicated conditions. Just fairness, written in a way that couldn't be misunderstood. For the first time in a long time, it felt like something in my life had been balanced without me having to fight for it. That didn't last. A few days after the will was read, my parents asked me to come over. And the moment I walked in, I could tell this wasn't going to be a normal conversation. They didn't start with questions. They started with conclusions. My father said the situation wasn't fair. Not because the will was wrong, but because reality was different. He said my sister needed the money more, that her life wasn't as stable, that giving it to her was the right thing to do. My mother supported him immediately, turning it into something moral, talking about sacrifice, about family responsibility, about how keeping the money would reflect who I really was. And my sister just sat there, silent, not arguing, not refusing, not even pretending to disagree. She just waited, like the outcome had already been decided and I was just there to confirm it. When I said no, calmly, without raising my voice, everything changed instantly. The disappointment turned into something sharper, something colder. My father's tone shifted. My mother's expression tightened. And suddenly I wasn't part of the family conversation anymore. I was the problem. The selfish one. The reason things weren't going the way they wanted. And if you've ever been in that position, where one decision rewrites your entire role in someone else's life, you already know how fast that shift happens. Because it's never just about the thing you refuse. It exposes everything. It shows you exactly what you were to them all along. Not someone they respected. Just someone they expected to give. If you've ever realized that the moment you stop giving is the moment people turn on you, you already know that's when everything starts to break. What happened next wasn't emotional. It was deliberate. My father didn't argue with me again after that. He didn't try to convince me. Didn't raise his voice. Didn't repeat himself. He just moved on to something else. Control. As the executor of the will, he decided he didn't need my agreement. He said he would handle it himself. He framed it like responsibility. Like he was doing what needed to be done because I wouldn't. He told me he would interpret my grandfather's intentions in a way that made sense for the family. And just like that, he made the decision to transfer my entire share to my sister. Not discuss it. Not negotiate it. Just do it. I remember sitting there, trying to process how someone could say something like that without hesitation. Like it wasn't crossing a line. Like it wasn't even questionable. But the more I listened, the clearer it became. This wasn't about misunderstanding the will. It was about ignoring it completely. My mother supported him immediately, saying that sometimes what's written doesn't reflect what's right, that family situations are more complicated than legal documents. My sister stayed quiet, but her silence wasn't neutral. It was acceptance. And that was enough. Because if you benefit from something, you don't question it. You let it happen. I tried to reason with them one last time, pointing out that my grandfather made his intentions clear, that this wasn't something anyone could change just because they felt like it. But logic didn't matter. It never had. Because this wasn't about what was right. It was about what they wanted. And for the first time, I stopped trying to fix it. Because I understood something I had been avoiding for years. This wasn't a situation I could solve. It was a pattern I had finally seen clearly. I didn't argue with them again after that. There was no point. Instead, I stepped outside of the conversation entirely. I called my grandmother and told her everything, exactly as it happened. Without emotion, without exaggeration, just facts. What they said, what they planned to do, and for a moment, there was silence on the other end. Not confusion, not hesitation, just silence. Then her tone changed in a way I had never heard before. Calm, but firm. Certain. She didn't ask questions because she already understood what this meant. Within hours, she contacted the attorney handling the will, then reached out to my father's siblings. And what followed wasn't loud or dramatic. It was precise, controlled. The kind of response that doesn't need to prove anything because it already has the authority to act. That's when the truth came out. My parents had already tried this before. Years ago, they asked my grandfather to leave everything to my sister. Not part of it. Everything. And he refused. Not quietly. Not vaguely. Clearly. And because of that, he added something to the will. A clause. Anyone who attempted to interfere with the equal distribution would lose their share completely. When that was revealed, everything shifted. My father couldn't argue. My mother couldn't justify it. Because this wasn't opinion anymore. It was written. Enforceable. Final. The attorney stepped in immediately. My father was removed as executor. The will was carried out exactly as it was written. No interpretation. No adjustments. No control. And just like that, everything they tried to take from me didn't just stop. It collapsed entirely. After that, nothing went back to the way it was before. Not because anything dramatic happened, but because something fundamental had already broken. The control they thought they had over me was gone. And without it, they didn't know how to act anymore. My parents stopped trying to convince me, but they didn't apologize either. They shifted into silence, the kind that isn't peaceful, just distant. Conversations became shorter. Color. Like every word had to be measured. My sister avoided the topic completely, moving forward like nothing had happened. Like it was easier to ignore it than to acknowledge what it revealed. And for the first time, I didn't try to fix any of it. I didn't reach out. I didn't explain. I didn't try to rebuild something that had always depended on me giving more than I should. Because once you see something clearly, you can't go back to pretending it's different. Weeks passed, and the distance stayed. Family gatherings felt forced. Conversations felt hollow. And the expectations that used to define everything just disappeared. Not because they changed, but because I did. Because I finally understood that what they called family was something that only worked when I accepted less than I deserved. And the moment I stopped doing that, everything else fell apart on its own. In the end, I didn't take anything from them. I didn't destroy anything they had. I just refused to let them take something from me. If you've ever realized that some people only value you when you're willing to sacrifice for them, you already know the moment you stop is the moment they lose control.